Erin Doan, State Farm Insurance. He is on with us. Erin, you have all kinds of great things behind you. I love your office there, and I appreciate you joining us. You have is that a pheasant above your head?
That is a pheasant. Yeah, I enjoy to go pheasant hunting in South Dakota every year.
Ah, that's great. And I would is that all the countries you've been to on the poster there? Or?
No, that's that's actually the persecuted church, and I don't laugh about that in general. It's
No,
just
no,
yeah, it's all the countries of the world that yeah, there's a lot of challenges going on around the world.
absolutely.
So yeah.
We hear a lot about that in the news for sure.
Hmm.
One
Hmm.
of the other things that we hear from time to time, and something that I learned years ago talking with a motorcyclist, was that the safety on the roadways for motorcycles, it's not that good. When it comes to outside influences like grass clippings, as an example, and other issues,
Hmm.
people looking both ways and then re-looking to make sure that they haven't missed that motorcycle that's coming their way. This morning, we're going to be talking with you about tips to help prevent motorcycle accidents, both from the motorcyclist standpoint, but also from us as other drivers on the road, as those with homes along roadways that could create an accident, and we never want to see something like that. Do you see that more people are hitting the roadways on motorcycles? Is ownership up these days?
Yeah, I think ownership is pretty flat right now. There's not a huge number of additional motorcyclists that we're seeing yet. Now the weather's just changing in northern Michigan, so as we get into the 60s and eventually 70s, the motorcyclists really come out. So I really love it that May is National Motorcycle Awareness Month, because this is the month that especially in our area we really start to see them. And every year we obviously have new riders and people that are buying bikes for the first time, or maybe haven't gotten theirs out. I do see that quite a bit, Chris. Is there's motorcycles like, I haven't for a few years, it's time for me to drive it again. So I think it's just a good topic for us to talk about today, and just give a hint that could save a life, could make a big difference by just some of these things we're going to help you with in the prevention, and just being a better driver if you're in a car on the
Yep.
roadways in northern Michigan, or obviously in the motorcyclist. What what are the best practices to really concentrate? Everybody goes in this training, but we'll try to give you some reminders too, especially from the education that we try to provide in the insurance world, to try to help you be safe and reduce the chances of a really bad accident.
Well, and let's talk about that. The tips for motorcycle safety and accident prevention, like
Hmm.
starting out with motorcycle inspection. That's probably a big part of it. Take us through why inspecting your motorcycle is an important part. And I mean, we can always think, okay, that just makes sense. But from an insurance agent standpoint, you probably have seen every kind of motorcycle accident out there, and some have probably boggled your mind in regards to something that we could have done
Hmm.
to prevent that, right?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the minor things that we. I'm going to get to that. I'm gonna fix that. But first, I want to ride. And any hobby or thing that you really enjoy to do, you want to be able to do it and do it right now and not be distracted or be delayed. But let's just face it. It could be one little thing, one turn signal, not double check to make sure it's working.
Mhm.
Your mirrors angled right. Maybe you have an arm bent and you can't quite get it where you can view it in the back because you tipped the bike over. Double check the brakes. Just make sure everything is working. And if you're not a mechanic, just stop by. Just set an appointment to have a buddy that really knows bikes, or a licensed, and certified mechanic. And check the fuel system too, because you don't want the bike bogging down going 70 miles an hour plus down the road. So, just, and if you're going to choose a new bike and you're going to look at a newer model, I'd really highly recommend anti-lock brakes, just to help prevent the bike's, wheels from locking up on you.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Erin Doan from Erin Doan State Farm Insurance. this morning. And Aaron, I'm looking at my notes, and one of the reasons, one of the things that people won't see, whoops, I got to bring you back on there, is I've been recovering at home, and so I'm not appearing on camera today, but I wanted you to be on camera, and
Mhm.
so with today's subject. It goes to show that we've got springtime weather. We can't see it from here, but I'm looking outside of my window here, and people are jumping on their motorcycles. I was just pulling out of a driveway the other day and looked right, looked left. I think I looked left first, looked right, and then looked left again, and there was that motorcycle that was coming down the road. Now, wasn't in danger, that motorcycle, from my vehicle, but we've got to double check sometimes when we're pulling out of a driveway, because I think mentally we're looking for a vehicle,
Mhm.
where there's a motorcycle that could be driving at a little bit faster pace,
Mhm.
and going to be in our reaction area, faster than we expect.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of just taking that extra moment just to think like, okay, especially listening to us, right, Chris? I think if the listener is going, all right, yep, I'm gearing up. It's like anything else in life. There's so many things to keep track of and to try to do well. But this is an area to, okay, let's put this in our brain, right? Let's have mental awareness, renew our mind. Like, we're going to see bikes, we're going to see motorcycles, and we have to double, triple check, and be really cautious about even changing lanes, which we haven't even talked about today yet. But
Mhm.
just that changing of lanes, and they're harder to see, in our side mirrors. But oftentimes, motorcycles will pick up on that warning signal. So if you have a late model, newer vehicle, a lot of times you'll have that little triangle or that little warning message on your side mirror that is something there. So just good practice of driving habits of looking in your mirror, but looking for that flashing orange as well in that mirror. And you're like, I don't see a car. What is going on? Oh my gosh, there's a motorcycle. So I think just again, it's just so much self-awareness when you're a driver. And for the motorcyclist, is do everything you can to not be in that blind spot, which if you're not familiar with this and you're a younger driver, it's that place that's about 3/4 of the way back on a vehicle. So if you're a motorcyclist and you're in that last half of in the lane next to them, they're going to have trouble. They can't see in your rearview mirror, and they can't see it by looking left. If they quick take a glance left, and they're hard to pick up in that side mirror. So just be
Yeah.
really cautious as a motorcyclist to not be in somebody else's blind spot, and also that driver just really take an extra moment before you change lanes on the fly.
Do you see that it's and this could certainly upset some people, based on answers and the questions and such, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you feel like it's dangerous to be a motorcyclist on the roadways these days or not?
Yeah, I grew up with motorcycles. I haven't really had them much as adults. It's funny, Chris, you say that because I'd like to get a motorcycle again. So maybe that helps ease what I'm going to say. But the distractions right now, especially with the phones, and even with a new law in Michigan that says, you have to be hands-free. By the way, that's the law. And I can't tell you the number of times I'm going down the road, seeing people's looking down, looking at their phone, driving down the road still. So please stop. Again, I'm not perfect, but at the same time, yeah, it's more dangerous. So as a motorcyclist, you have to be more aware. So just be really cautious of, you know, maybe, be really careful in driving during busier times, and maybe stay in that lane, and don't get too frustrated by somebody in that right lane driving slow. When it's busier, take it easy because not everyone is paying attention. And the other element too, Chris, that people need to hear from where we live is you have to remember all the snowbirds are coming back. And I love snowbirds. They help my insurance business. I'm getting older myself, and like to go away a little bit in the winter, but they're not paying attention. The reaction times are slower, especially when we get into our 70s and 80s. Their ability to turn and see is getting slower, and they're going to pull out. So just be aware of that. And then the seasonals, when they're driving down US 10 or 31 or Lakeshore Drive, or M37 out east of the county here, there's people that are looking for where they're going to go, and they're looking at the sites, and they're not paying attention. So you have multiple things. You got potentially seniors that slower reactions. You got our vacationers and seasonal people that are looking for, like, oh, that's new. What's that? Oh, I don't know. That wasn't here last year. And then Chris, as we know, just this whole element too of you know, um, just being ultra aware that streets are just much, much, much busier May through October, and especially end of June, really through the middle, late of July.
If somebody, if you don't mind me kind of veering off just for a moment here,
Sure.
as we talk about motorcycles and the safety side of it, preventing motorcycle accidents from the driver's standpoint, from the motorcyclist standpoint. If somebody is interested in, they're gearing up for, pull out with their first motorcycle this year or looking to buy, what, and I know we could have a complete total conversation in regards to this, but is there just that one, two, three sort of tips or thoughts for that first motorcyclist? I mean, I know we're talking about safety and we're going to go back into that, but as you were talking, I'm thinking, there are probably some new riders jumping on the road this year. And they need to sit down with it, and they need to talk about insurance rates on it and all of that. But maybe there's a few things that always comes to mind when you are talking with that new motorcyclist.
Well, I think one of the things related to insurance is just being aware that that is an auto policy, and again, just be aware that it does affect you have an accident, you get caught speeding. It's easier to speed on a motorcycle. I think one thing just to realize is that that can affect your premium on your insurance overall, and so just that's a key point. I guess I would say for that newer, as I think about a newer driver too, other than the safety parts, is, maybe just that helmet. There's a recommendation about having a, full face helmet, and I know that sometimes that doesn't look cool, or even wearing a helmet at all. But coming back to insurance, that is an ability now for you not to wear a helmet in the state of Michigan. That happened, oh, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. But having 20,000 in medical, and I can't tell you, Chris, the number of people that our motorcycle insurance policy comes, with an optional 20,000 that the state wants you to have, and people say, yeah, no, they decline it. And we're not talking a lot of money here, maybe $100 a year for that medical coverage on 20,000. And that can go a long way on your health insurance for your co-pays and your deductibles. And people don't realize, even if they have an 80/20 plan, that they're going to be paying for 20% up to sometimes 10, 15, 20,000. So what that means is there's going to be a big chunk of money that you're going to have to pay out of pocket. And a lot of people, I have health insurance. I got now motorcycle insurance, I'm good, but I really highly recommend the medical that we offer on our motorcycle insurance, and all motorcycle carriers offer medical on their insurance, and I would highly encourage you to take it, whether you have a helmet on or not, but even more so with not wearing a helmet.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes we look at even bicyclists and others that don't have helmets on, and you just worry because part of our conversation today, or part of the focus, is being able to share the road, be able to be considerate to others that are on the road, and we've touched a little bit on that this morning. Uh, is there anything else that comes to mind? I know we've got some other safety tips, but is there anything else that comes to mind when it comes to being more of a considerate driver on the road when it comes to motorcyclists and even others out there?
Yeah, I would say that, there's some elements in terms of some self-reflection, Chris, to get into that considerate aspect. One of the things that's important is we're, trying to interact with differences, and it's obviously heightened through social media and things of that nature, is that we can be getting after each other for a number of things, right? But in this space, we're talking lives at stake, right? When you're a motorcycle driver trying to be in that state, but just having more empathy for other people and relating to their situation. And you go, well, why does that relate to motorcycle? Well, just because if we have more understanding of where the other person's coming, we understand where they're, in terms of driving, and if we have more thoughtfulness, we're thinking more about other than ourselves. Yes, we're trying to be defensive drivers, but we're trying to be thoughtful drivers too. And if somebody cuts you off, and I'm not always the best at this, my wife will attest to it, is it's just being polite. Just don't have road rage, don't go after somebody, be courteous on the roadways. And I think that, those are three really important things that, in this whole aspect of being aware, and being attuned to social cues, that we want to just have the understanding, the context of the situation of being on the road and being sensitive to other people in terms of, they're going fast. And maybe sometimes we get frustrated with the really fast motorcyclists coming up on us or passing us. But you have to realize, yes, a lot of them are enjoying the speed and the excitement, the thrill of the motorcycle. But we also have to realize there could be something else going on in their life, in on their lives. There could be an emergency. There could be. There could be something happening with their mom's health. Somebody fell. Somebody's really sick and they're trying to get there. And yes, they know they're going fast. And yes, you didn't see them and you almost hit them. So I think just being considerate again as a driver, being mindful that there's more going on than what it always shows when we're on the roadway.
Well, and it is. It goes both ways to make sure that we we take care of ourselves if we're on a motorcycle, and as a driver out there that we are we have to be on the defense and the offense in
Yes.
many cases. And I know with some of the motorcycle tips, as well as some of the, obviously drivers out there and motorcyclists, we shouldn't be drinking and driving. We
hmm
need to, in bad weather, and I have seen it. I'm sure you have, where you see a motorcyclist out there in the rain, and maybe it's they just didn't realize that it was going to rain, and so they're in that weather, and you feel bad for them. But that's always a safety issue for anybody. You get slick roads
hmm
if you're in a car. You got slick roads if you're on two wheels on a motorcycle, as well. And then obviously we have to always obey traffic laws out there,
Yes.
no matter who we are, or what we're driving. What Before we wrap up, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, but if you don't mind, when somebody comes in and wants to talk about insurance when it comes to motorcycles, in the sense, they are asking those questions. Your team is working with them on putting the best insurance on their motorcycle. I always wondered this, because we are on outside of a vehicle. Do we have to have additional insurance when we're on a motorcycle? Is there any? I guess what I'm trying to say is there a higher level of danger that requires additional insurance?
Not really outside of the medical, Chris. That's a key component, obviously, with our laws related to auto insurance in Michigan. If you're from out of state, and just realize that we have a lot of varied options if you're driving a private passenger auto in Michigan for medical. And we no longer, for out of state drivers on our roadways, pay unlimited medical. And that changed in July of 2020 with a no fault reform law. But I would say for motorcyclists, the biggest one can be oftentimes is understanding that you don't oftentimes have the personal injury protection that will extend from an accident with an auto, covering you, especially as an out of state motorcyclist. You need to be very careful on what coverage you have. And if your motorcycle stays here, it's registered in, a seasonal home in Michigan, and you have it registered in Michigan, that motorcycle, should be insured in Michigan. And the biggest thing, really, Chris, is making sure you have the right liability. And sometimes people will say, well, I'll have lower liability on the motorcycle because I'm not going to hurt somebody as much. But realize too, though, if you are the one that caused somebody to go off of the road and they get hurt and you are negligent in that situation, you need to have the correct liability on all of your motorized vehicles. And oftentimes we get into what's called a personal liability umbrella policy, which starts at $1 million. And that umbrella policy covers over anything that you can do, almost literally, in terms of hurting somebody else, being liable, slander, and having good coverage on everything for sure motorized 26 horsepower and greater. So that's just an extra thing that, having toys, having more things, really you should consider having better liability coverage than just what's on your motorcycle or just what's on your auto.
Huh.
I highly recommend in the state of Michigan, you know, an umbrella policy.
Very good points. Very good points. They can have those additional conversations with you and your team right there
Hmm.
at Erin Doan State Farm Insurance between Scottville and Ludington on the north side of US 10. I always ask you to tell us your phone number and we talk about your location, but
Sure.
what's the most convenient thing for you and your team when it comes to questions from those that are considering insurance? Is it a phone call? Is it better to sit down? What's the most convenient way to get this information to the viewers and listeners.
One of the things that State Farm, I would say nationwide, if you will, owns is the relationship business in personal insurance. And that can always be done best face to face, belly to belly. And when you're looking in each other's eyes and you are trying to understand, and we're trying to teach and educate you about why you need to protect this risk, we are oftentimes having conversations about catastrophe. If the absolute worst happens, let's talk about that. And as you get into your 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond, a lot of people have more things, more to lose, more children, a bigger house, and they have more to protect. So as a risk advisor is really what we call ourselves in the State Farm Insurance Agency world, is we're risk advising you to protect the worst case scenarios, not the probability of you having an accident or getting hurt or hurting somebody else, but what are the consequences if it happens to you? What happens to your family if you no longer are able to bring home a paycheck? What happens to you if you no longer are able to go to work because you're hurt and it's going to take a year for you to heal? So those are really tough conversations, but important ones. And we do our darndest to care, ask tough questions, provide the most economical solutions that protect you the best. And everybody's different. I have customers that, are on Social Security disability. They're doing the best that they can. They have one car. They're just making their bills. And I have people that have, a lot of homes and a lot of vehicles and a lot of things. So just trying to individualize literally who you are, what's important to you, helping you understand the risks of everyday life because we get so busy. We're not thinking about all the risks of everyday life, and we're trying to help you in that space and then provide a solution, a plan, and insurance proposals that are going to be the most thoughtful, that fit the gaps where you don't have it at work. If you have gaps at your benefits at work, we're trying to fill in those gaps and do the best we can.
Absolutely. Good information this morning. And it is, as you mentioned, Motorcycle Awareness Month. And we are seeing the motorcyclists out on the roads more
We
often.
are.
They are, and they're excited to be out on the road. Can you imagine all those days of winter that
Oh
they're,
yeah.
yeah,
And this
like
winter was, in some ways, especially long because it's been a long time since we've had such a snowy and wintry cold winter. So
yeah.
even more so, everybody's so excited about the spring this year.
Yeah, for sure, and we appreciate you diving into this with us. Our view from your office. That's always exciting to see that, and on each time we connect with you, we'll continue to improve our connection here as we work with our new technology and all that good stuff. But I love that you're able to give us an eye views eye point, a bird's eye bird's eye
Bird's
into
eye view. Yeah.
yeah, into your office there. I don't know where those words were coming from, but
It's all good, Chris, man. It's
yeah,
all good.
yeah, it's all right. Well, we will connect with you, and if you'll tell us the phone number for
Sure.
those that are out there that they can reach you.
Yeah, you can reach us in Ludington, Scottsville. We're serving really all of West Michigan, all of Michigan. We're licensed for the whole state. You can reach us at 231-757-3115. And like Chris said, we're on US 10 in Ludington, in between Ludington and Scottsville, half a mile east of Meyer there on the north side of US 10 in Ludington. So.
All right, Erin, thanks for taking the time with us this morning. We appreciate you always, and we will connect with you in a couple of weeks if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, Chris. Thanks so much.
All right, you got it. Stand by if you don't mind on 102.7 Mom FM and Hot Country Hits 99.9.